Okay, everybody, today we are going to be focusing on challenge groups. I say today, if you are a fast pacer, this might be one of many modules you do. If you are taking this at a slower pace, maybe you're going to do challenge groups over the next couple of days. But this is where it all comes together, okay? So if you're talking about growing your business with coaches, the best coaches come out of challenge groups. So I was a challenger, the personally sponsored coach that invited you as a challenger. We all started off as challengers, and I was a challenger as my own. I never joined a challenge group, but I was a challenger working on a program for several months, saying no to the coaching opportunity before I became a coach. So just remember, as we talked about with inviting, I was one of those that said no probably 5 to 7 times before I jumped into the opportunity. And I want to help you in these modules understand that it is super important to not only get your challengers to the goals that they have set before them, but to encourage them and to help inspire them and still at the same time push them along the way. So this is really about getting to know your challengers and what is going to make them tick, okay? So we're going to talk about challenge groups in another video. This video is going to be the one where we talk about what to do when you've got your challengers and you are planning. You're in the planning phase of how to run an effective challenge group that's organized. Now, you are your own business man or woman. So you can run your challenge groups however you want. I've run challenge groups alone, all by myself. I've run challenge groups with one other coach. I've run challenge groups with 3 other coaches. My favorite way to run challenge groups is either with 4 total coaches or by myself. So, excuse me, there are benefits that come out of each. I love running challenge groups with 4 people because it does take the, I don't want to say, it takes the workload and it divides it among 4 people. So that is good from a time standpoint, which enables you to spend more time engaging with your people, not virtually, on the phone or with your voice or face-to-face, because you're not worrying about being the person doing every single post. I like doing them alone because I'll do smaller groups of my personally sponsored challengers, usually a group of challengers that have really lofty weight loss goals, or challengers that have really lofty self-esteem goals, or challengers that I know would be great coaches, and I want to really develop that relationship and get them the transformation that they need. So those are my 2 favorite ways. I have never run a challenge group with over 4 coaches. In my opinion, that's too much, but I know that some coaches do it that way. And it's fine to run a challenge group with 2 people, 3 people, but those are my personal favorites, okay? So I have a challenge group coming up on Friday. We're actually doing the 3-day refresh kickoff, and then Shaun T week kicks off on Monday. So once you become part of Faithfully Fit, you have access to our challenge group Excel drives. Now, not every coach on our team uses this. There are plenty of coaches on our team that have their own Excel drives for their own teams, or they just do it on their own. All of my personally sponsored coaches who have not left the nest yet, so to speak, use this. So I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like, okay? So basically, once you are part of Team Faithfully Fit, you have access to our team Google Drive. We've talked a little bit about the snippets that you have access to. We've talked a little bit about this roster we're about to do. There's lots of information on the coach page where we link to this drive. So what happens is you will be able to come on in here and you'll see which drives are shared with you because I own this drive. So you would click on shared with me, and that's where you would find the challenge group roster. But once you find the challenge group roster, it looks like this. And what I love about it is that it becomes a working document that we are able to use to share information. So as you can see, like right now, Irene is one of our coaches. She is in the Google Drive right now, probably making changes to the roster. So it shows me who's in here at what time. It shows me who was the last person to make changes. If you already know Google Docs, Google Excel, Google Drives, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm not going to go into that in too much detail. And I'm going to use this blank roster because I don't want to pull up the current one with all of our challengers' names on it. I want to keep those private. Excuse me, something here. So the way we do it, if you look down at the bottom, with all of these dates here, you'll see it goes back a while. We've been using this Google Drive for a long time. But let's say that you are getting ready to start a challenge group on, let's say July 17th, right? Because that's going to be a big one. That's going to be when we release Shift Shop. So what would happen is you would take this, if you're the first person, and usually somebody is, you take this template, you copy it, and you add a new tab with the date. So at the time that you have challengers that want to join a challenge group, you don't have to say like, who's running a challenge group? Who's running a challenge group? You can talk to your personally sponsored coach and be like, okay, when are we running a challenge group? Because you're going to run a challenge group with your PS coach for a while until you're ready to go. But for someone like me, I'm not really checking with anyone. I'm like, I did a call to action. I've got, challenge group starting on the 17th. So I'm going to make a document that says 7/17. And that way, when other team members come in, they can look at the bottom and say, when are challenge groups starting? So as you can see, there were 3 challenge group dates that were in May, and we've had 3 challenge group dates in June. And so coaches will come in here and they'll be like, oh, great, a tab is already made for July 17th. Let me go ahead and add my people. So what you do is you start to add your people here. I'm actually going to pull this out. Okay, so we're going to take those names out. So for instance, Juliet Hahn has already added 3 people into this group. So let's pretend like I ran a call to action. I am not running a group on 6/26, but if I was, I would come over here and I would put my initials and I would start listing my challengers, okay, by name, okay, so that other coaches can see who's in here, okay? And then let's say that Heidi Laws is in here and she's going to start adding her people. And then let's say that Irene comes in here and she's going to start adding her people, and maybe she's got 10 challengers. So she's listed all of her people. So what happens is sometimes we have just a couple of coaches. Sometimes we have a lot of coaches, and what you start to do is we start to sort of get on our box chain, and we'll be like, okay, who's going, like there's a big, huge box chain called the Faithfully Fit Coaches. You can choose to be a part of that or not. It's pretty busy. Some coaches feel overwhelmed by it. Some coaches love it. So a lot of times in that box chain, it's called Faithfully Fit Fitness Freaks. We'll be like, okay, who's running a group on 6/26? If you're running a group, we're going to start a new box chain. And so then that's sort of what we use to get it all kind of into play. So as you can see here, Juliet is running a group with Portia and Jennifer. Those are 2 of her brand new coaches. So she says only 3 coaches, which is telling me as another coach coming in here, okay, Juliet already has that group set. There's no more room for coaches. Obviously, Juliet wants to do some things with her personally sponsored coaches. But I might go down here and I'm going to put my initials. And if I just put my initials here, what happens is people will start to add themselves. So like, for instance, Irene might come in here and add her initials. And then later on this evening, Heidi might come in and add her initials. And as you add your initials, you move your challengers from up here to down here, because we usually like to keep the groups somewhat small. I say that, although the group I'm currently running right now is 65 people. But Juliet obviously wants to keep the group small because she's only got 14 in here. Now, if you want to run a big group, it doesn't mean you have to do what Juliet's doing. You have total access to come in here and you can insert oops, let's take back what I just did. See, I'm not the best on this, but we learn. So I'm going to insert, there we go. I'm going to insert some more rows here. And that way, if I already know that I'm going to run a group with Heidi, and Heidi is already indicated up here, she has 3 people, Irene has 10 people, that's 13. I have 3 more people, that's 16. So we know our group has at least 16, but we also have room for 1 more coach. So sometimes at the last minute, it happens. A coach will come in and be like, hey, I've got 5 people, totally last minute, can I come in? So we've got room there. So we would be open to having 20 challengers. So once you have your group set, then what you do is usually, like, if we have a big box chain of like 12 coaches all figuring out who we're going to coach with, then what we'll do is we will end that box chain, and then I would start a box chain with just Heidi and Irene. And that way I can be talking to the coaches that are running a group for 21 days so that we are making sure that we are giving our challengers what they want and what they need. And I'll be talking about that when we talk about the actual challenge groups in a second. So you get the gist here. I'm going to delete all of this. Okay, so I'm going to have it go back to just Juliet because she's the only one in here right now. Okay, so once your group is set, then it's time to figure out your pre-work. So let me take you back to this template here. So this is the template. This is the one that's pretty. Nothing is mixed up in here. So you come to here, and this is how you as coaches determine who is in charge of what for your challenge group. Now again, all coaches do this differently. I do not work with a script on what we talk about on each day. My challenge groups change all the time. I'm going to show you in the other video about using the challenge group tracker, how you're able to reuse old posts. But a lot of times what we'll do is these are the posts that, that you're making a commitment that you're going to be in charge of the post. Okay, so if your challenge group is 21 days and you have 3 coaches, then each coach gets 7 days, okay? But you also have pre-work, and we do have the pre-work that's set. So what we do is we open up groups on Wednesday, usually Wednesday morning. Those groups open up, and when those groups are open, then we plan who's going to be posting what. So we have the introduction. That's the post that goes up asking all the coaches to introduce themselves. The grocery shopping list, the menu examples. We use different ones every time. So samples of a meal plan. A lot of times we use ones that we make on our own. We make one up for our challengers. We go to Pinterest. We get creative so that we're constantly giving new meal plans to our challengers. The tracking video, it's a Christine Dwyer video. She's another Star Diamond coach who's made a great video on how to actually take the containers and turn it into a meal plan. We do a post about the container sizes with a little image that shows that a red container is 3/4 a cup. A yellow container is 1/4 of a cup so that people don't feel shackled to their containers. And we also share the 21-day fixed tracker. That's the app if people want to tap, tap, tap and deduct their containers for the day instead of manually writing it down. We remind them on Sunday mornings to do their measurements and their pictures. And then we usually have a video that goes up on Sunday evening. So again, you've got 7 pre-work. So again, with 3 coaches, all of us would do 2 pre-work, and 1 person would do 3. So what we usually do is we go in, and in our box chain, we're like, okay, let's put our initials in. And I'm going to be the one to do 3. So I'm going to set my initials here, and Irene's going to put her initials here. And Heidi is going to put her initials right here, okay? And so now we know who is in charge, okay? If you have a preference, if you know that you're a coach and you have a lot of people who are early risers, then you with your team of coaches can be like, hey guys, if we're planning posts, can we make sure that we have posts up by 5 a.m.? Some groups don't really care. Some groups would say, hey, can we do 3 p.m. posts for the evening instead of 7? You can do whatever you want. There's no set way. And then if there's 21 days in the challenge, then you go and you post your name for 7 days, right? So I'm going to pick these, and if I'm on a family vacation, for the last 4 days of this challenge group, then I'm going to box my other team of coaches and be like, do you mind taking the last 4 days? And I'll go heavy on the earlier days. So I'm picking my 7 days. And so the other coaches are going to do that. And then boom, you've got your schedule set. So I'll show you in the other video how you can pre-plan some of your posts. But I do encourage you not to pre-plan too many of your posts too far ahead, because as your challengers are engaging and as your challengers are talking to you about, what is a struggle, what their victories are, you want to be able to sort of customize your group to your people. That doesn't mean that if, Heidi definitely wants to talk about, water intake, or Irene wants to talk about the importance of stretching, or Irene wants to talk about, getting through mental barriers, that she can indicate that she's going to be talking about those things. So Heidi might say, hey, I've got challengers that have already told me they don't drink any water, so I'm going to take that topic. So she would just sort of put the topic right there. I'm not a big topic person. Again, I sort of more go with the flow based on what my challengers do, but there are times where I'll be like, okay, you know what? I definitely want to make sure I do a video in the middle of the weekend to keep people focused, to help them remember that weekends are going to either make or break their results. So I might put here even like video weekends matter, right? So that the other coaches know what I'm talking about and what I'm going to be discussing. And then they can say, like, if Heidi's after me on Sunday, Heidi can be like, oh, that's great. Tracy's going to talk about the fact that weekends matter. I'm going to talk about the fact that you need to do your prep work, for the week ahead. So it sort of does help some teams of coaches when they get together, but it's not required. But this document is great. Amy Whitcomb made it for us probably 18 months ago. We live and breathe by this. It keeps us organized. It keeps the group of coaches organized so that the posts can be scheduled and that we know what the expectations are so that we can plan our working time around our challenge groups and around our personal lives as well. So in the next video, you guys are going to learn about challenge groups, how to be smart and work smart in challenge groups, how to make your challengers feel accountable and encouraged, which is the most important thing. But we had to get through the nitty gritty of actually getting organized in challenge groups. So hopefully this helped you. The link to this Google Drive will be in the comment section in your module, and I will see you in the next video. All right, guys, see you later.